G'day and welcome to The Outer Side. I'm Tony, and in this episode I'm joined by Liv Barnes. Liv is a four-wheel driver, a fisho, a hunter, and a general outdoors woman. So, welcome to the show, Liv.
Thanks for having me, mate. I'm excited to be here.
Are you, or are you a bit nervous?
A little bit nervous,
All
but
right,
excited.
So what we're going to do differently this time, which we haven't done, is we're going to do fast five. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions, which I've prepared earlier, and you need to just answer with the first thing that comes into your head.
Whew, all right, okay.
What's your dream car?
God, that was a big pause, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I've always had a soft spot for patrols. I'm not going to lie. If we didn't have the diesel workshop, patrol for sure.
GQ or GU?
GU.
Good answer. What's your favourite place in Australia?
Cairns, I would have to say at the moment. Far North Queensland.
Really?
Yeah.
I was expecting WA.
Yeah, haven't done enough of WA, I feel, to say that just yet. Definitely Cairns at the moment.
Good. Palmer or Palmy?
Palmy.
Of course. All you in Victoria, you heard it here first. Your favourite band?
Oh, I want to say Nickelback. I feel like
Brilliant.
they're just like ageless. I don't know. It's just good mood, good vibe.
I rate it. And what would you eat for your last meal?
It would definitely have to be seafood. I'm a sucker for oysters or maybe some like tuna sashimi. I feel like.
Also an acceptable answer. All right. So you've been around the four-wheel drive scene for a little while. You obviously you own a four-wheel drive workshop, and you do a lot of content creation on YouTube and on Instagram. So how did that whole journey for you start? Did you grow up around four-wheel drives?
To be honest, not really. So growing up, I was really into my horse riding and I did that competitively for a lot of years. So for me to be able to tow a horse float, I needed a four-wheel drive because, towing capacity and whatnot. So that's kind of how I got my first four-wheel drive. My family were never really into it, but I think once I had my first four-wheel drive and I saw the places it could take me and the freedom behind it, that's what really hooked me. Like horse riding aside, like I obviously love doing that. When you start to get like a group of mates who are all into the camping and like the outdoorsy stuff, and it just, I was hooked. Hook, line and sinker, done.
That's pretty cool. So was that relatively soon after you got your Ps? Like you were pretty young when you got into it? Yeah,
I'd say so. Like never did it as much as what I guess I do now. It was always more kind of the camping side of things and heading out with friends and whatnot. And then I would say probably as far as actually full driving goes, it's probably been a thing that's only I've really learnt in the last couple of years, to be completely honest. So always had like a ute, always had a four-wheel drive, but it's always kind of just been like a weekender thing, and kind of progressed from there, I guess.
As it does, right? It's a bit of a snowball.
Yeah, it does indeed, yeah.
Yeah, right. So the content creation side, at what point did you decide that you wanted to film what you were doing and share that with the world?
Yeah, well, that's a bit of a big story, but pretty much what happened to me around, about 6 years ago, I actually lost my little sister. She passed away really suddenly, and it was it just rocked my world. And after she passed away, I kind of went into like a shell a little bit, and I wasn't using my car as much. I wasn't getting out there and doing all the things that I love doing so much. And then I remember it was this one weekend that I was like, what am I doing? Like, she wouldn't want me to be living my life like this. She'd want me to be out there doing the things that I love doing, getting in my car, loading up the dogs, going out west, or going wherever I wanted to. And so it was kind of like a flick switch, something changed in me that I was like, I need to get it back out there and do it. And at that point, I had just started doing kind of social media, Instagram, things like that. And I decided I wanted to kind of share that story because, there's a lot of people out there who have either been through a really hard situation or they might be struggling a little bit. So I wanted to put that story out there. So that was the first YouTube episode I actually ever did.
Wow.
Yeah, I put that, it was a very vulnerable moment for me, but I put that out there, and the amount of like a response that I got from that, of either people who have been through the same thing and, they also needed that little bit of encouragement to get back out there and live their life again, it kind of kicked the love for it back up. Like it was almost adding like wood to a bonfire,
Yeah.
And from there I was like, this is awesome. I love filming and I love creating content. And then if I can also do that at the same time as helping people or, encouraging other people to get back out there, then that's incredible. Like I was just, my heart was on fire after that. I was like, this is what I want to do.
Oh,
so
that's amazing.
Yeah,
I didn't know that about you, and that's
Yeah.
really, I guess, an admirable path into what you're doing, and I guess that resonates with even what you call the channel, right? Like, This Is Liv'N.
Exactly, yeah. Well, I wanted to call it This Is Liv'N because, like I said, the first episode was very vulnerable and very, like, me opening up about, you know, things that make me tick. So I wanted to call the channel This Is Liv'N, as in like this is live, but also living.
Yeah, very clever.
Yeah. So that's how it kind of started from there, and yeah, it's been a journey since
So when did
then.
that start? When did you put the first video up?
Oh yeah, it would have been probably about 4 years ago now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and then it's kind of just been snowballing and just kind of rolling with it ever since then. And yeah, it's been amazing. Like I absolutely love it.
So have you had like any kind of media training or any media background, or was that like you just got a camera and decided to have a crack?
Yeah, pretty much. It all just started with, well, actually in saying that, when I was younger, we did do a lot of, I guess, like, you know, camping on long weekends, like family trips and stuff. And even back then, I loved making little edits of, like, you know, if we went down to the river skiing one weekend, I'd love to make a little edit and, you know, whatnot. So I've always had a passion for it. Always had a passion for photography and things like that. But yeah, that kind of, it really kicked off, I guess, you know, once like, especially since like social media has grown so much as well, it kind of just really kicked off from there. And yeah, it was really cool, the reach that I felt like I could have with so many people from it.
Yeah, and being able to tell those stories, I suppose.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And so you mentioned as you were younger, like camping and water skiing, and obviously you're into horses, so you've always been involved in the outdoors.
Always, yeah, always. My mum is also very passionate about the outdoors, so for me growing up, she was always like taking us places, you know, whether it be like rock climbing or, you know, whitewater rafting and stuff when we were kids. Like she was always encouraging us to be outdoors and, you know, doing that kind of thing. Yeah,
Amazing. And that's what this whole podcast is about, right? Now, the irony is not lost that we are technically sitting inside, but we're in a workshop, so it's like open, you know, it's close enough.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's something that I've talked about with a bunch of guests on this show. You know, my first question is always, how did you start? What was your pathway into, you know, the outdoors? And 9 times out of 10, it's what you do as a kid growing up, right? Being exposed to that. And I guess normalizing it, that's something really close to my heart, having a young daughter. You know, she just spent the weekend at the Denny Ute Muster, and people are like, you sure you want to take your 5-month-old daughter there? It's like, hell yeah, I want to take her there, you know, and we're sitting there and there's a fire going and, you know, she's got fireworks going off and loud noises, and it's like, I want that to be normal.
100%. It's the best way to do it, I reckon. Like, you know, Tom and I aren't at that stage yet,
of
but
course,
you know, when we do have kids and things like that, eventually, that's what I want to do. You know, as soon as, you know, the baby is old enough, we're going to be out there on the road, still doing the things that we love, and just, you know, getting them out there doing it with us. And I cannot wait for that.
Yeah,
I'm so excited.
And it sets kids up for a life of the outdoors, right? It normalizes that, which I think is really important.
Yeah.
Particularly now when there's so much technology, right? And screens and social media and all that. So sometimes it's good just to like disconnect and get back to the basics, right?
100%. Back to basics is always better, I reckon.
So you bought a 4-wheel drive to tow your horse float. What sort of car was that?
It was a Nissan Navara, a D40. And I had that for so many years. Like, so many people talk shit about Nissan Navaras.
That was my first 4-wheel drive as well.
Yeah, there you go. Beautiful. Love that. Part of the club. But it was such a rig. Like, once I kind of faded out of competing, like, with horses and stuff a lot, I actually took that to the Northern Territory for my first ever, like, solo trip.
You went solo to the NT.
I did, yeah. I had it on my bucket list for so long. I got out of like a long-term relationship, and I was like, this is something that I need to do for myself. So packed my little D40. It had like the most basic setup on it. It had like a, you know, mini little dog box with a fridge on one side and like a lockable cage on the other, and I had a swag, and then off I went. And yeah, went out to Uluru and did a whole bunch of travelling around the centre, and then came back down through South Australia. Best thing I ever did to this day.
So how old were you when you did that?
I was probably, God, what am I now? I was probably 24, I reckon, yeah. So it was a little bit
That's
like
pretty ballsy.
Yeah, I wasn't like a baby, but it was ballsy at the time. Like, I still remember driving out of Mum and Dad's driveway and having all these doubts and fears and being like, oh my God, am I really doing this? Am I capable of doing this? Like, you know, but pushing through that. And then once I hit that first bit of open road, I think I was like going out the other side of Burke or something, and it just kind of flooded me, the excitement. You know, I was like, I'm actually doing this. Like, this is happening.
That's a proper adventure.
It
And I
was
know
awesome.
fully grown men that wouldn't do that. So I don't think you should underestimate how important that is. Like, that's phenomenal. Just having the guts to go, hey, this is what I want to do, and going and do it. So how long was that trip?
It was only a couple of weeks because I was kind of in between jobs at the time, and wasn't really sure what I was going to be doing once I got back and things like that. So I was kind of just winging it, and it was a bit of a last minute decision, even though it was something that I'd wanted to do for such a long time.
Yeah.
I just knew that I wanted to do a trip where I wasn't in the passenger seat. I wanted to be driving my own Ks, you know, behind the wheel of my own car, and just get it done.
Yep.
So yeah, it was only a couple of weeks at the time, but it's
still massive.
Still
And
awesome.
in a D40 Navara. And did the D40 Navara break down, or did it get you home?
It had one little hiccup, which was pretty funny. I was pretty remote at the time, and it blew a boost hose, which obviously, like, nowadays looking back, I'm like, that's an easy fix.
Yeah,
like,
whatever.
it's fine. Yeah. But at the time, I was still kind of new to it all, and like, I was freaking out.
As you would be, yeah.
The duct tape came out, the cable ties came out, and I was like, we're gonna make this work, and it's all gonna be fine until I can get service and get a part or whatever I need to do. But yeah, it was definitely a learning experience too, which was awesome.
That's the best. But isn't that part of the fun of those journeys? Like, not at the time. Like, when something breaks and you're in a remote area, it can be pretty, like...
Yeah, you're like, oh no.
You know, it can introduce some fear to the situation, but then when you get home, like, that's what makes the adventure, right?
100%. And like, it's a proud moment too to look back on. You're like I said, looking back on it now, I'm like, oh, it's nothing. But at the time, you look back and you're like, I did that. Like, you know, I made it through. Everything's fine. You know.
Yeah.
A very cool growth moment, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So from the Navara, now I had a D22.
Okay.
So mine was a little different, but for me it was the same thing actually. I bought it to tow.
Nice.
Like, I was like, I'm going to buy it to tow a boat. I never bought the boat. I ended up getting like so sidetracked with four-wheel drives, and I've only recently got a boat now, like 10 years later, right? So there was a bit of a hiccup there for me, but you bought a Navara to tow, and then as you started doing more camping and you got more into that, what was the transition from that to what you've got now, which is like a full-blown go anywhere remote tourer?
Yeah, it's crazy to look back sometimes, hey, like where you start and kind of where you end up. The transition period was like, again, I loved my D40, but it was getting a little bit long in the tooth. At this point, I had started seeing Tommy, my now husband, and him being obviously a diesel mechanic, he hated the D40. It was like, it was just always something going on. It was like starting to get to the point where it was like having little teething issues and whatnot. And he was like, I feel like it's time for an upgrade, you know. And I was
so
like,
the decision was made for you.
100%. Like, I cried the day I sold the D40. I called her Nelly the Navara, and and from there, Tom being such an Isuzu lover himself, he was like, have you thought about an Isuzu D-Max? And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. Like, I guess they've got good engines and stuff. We'll give it a go. And then, so I ended up buying the D-Max stock standard.
Yeah, right.
And just after I bought it, we went into COVID lockdown. Like, it was proper, couldn't go within a 5K radius and all that kind of stuff. We were in Sydney at the time. So at this point, we were pretty much living in our workshop. Yeah, right. And we couldn't go out to the farm, couldn't do anything else on a weekend. So we pretty much just spent every weekend building this thing up. And I learnt so much through that process as well. Like, just, obviously spent, again, every weekend in the workshop doing every little modification we could to it, everything that we could get our hands on at the time. So once lockdown finished, then we could jump in it and go, pretty much. So it was a funny transition, but it kind of worked out perfectly at the same time because we had so much time to build this.
And you would have learnt a lot through that process, I imagine.
100%, yeah. Learnt so much compared to, like, my D40 days. So
it's funny how that works. I rebuilt my Land Cruiser during COVID for the same reason. I couldn't do anything, so I started pulling the car apart, right? So this car is obviously, so for anyone listening on audio, bad luck. But I'm sure you'd know the car. This car's been, I guess, pretty well seen on the internet. And I know from my perspective, I've watched the car evolve and turn into what it is now, which is something pretty epic.
Thank you.
So I guess, like, did you have a plan in mind with this car when you built it, or did it just kind of snowball?
I feel like, do we ever have a plan when it comes to building four-wheel drives?
No.
Yeah, no.
Not personally.
Yeah, like, I had an idea, but again, at the time, I was so used to just swagging it and had like a very basic setup, and then going to this where, you know, like I feel like so much in the industry was evolving at that point in time too, because the industry was really blowing up when, you know, we couldn't go overseas, everyone was getting into their full driving and stuff. So there were so many things that were accessible, like train canopies and rooftop tents. Like I never thought I'd be in a rooftop tent. I loved my swag, you know what I mean? So it wasn't like I had an end goal for it. It was kind of like a, let's just see where this goes. And let's be honest, to this day, we're still chopping and changing things. It's never finished.
It happens, right?
Full drives are never finished.
Yeah, I can relate.
Yeah.
Do you miss the simplicity of the old rig, or are you now so comfortable with having everything there?
Yeah, look, like don't get me wrong, it literally is a home on wheels.
Yep.
So I love that aspect, the fact that, you know, I can very easily pack up and go, whereas I feel like when I had the more simple setup, it did take a lot more planning and like, you know, how much food could I carry and water and things like that. I do love it. I love the home on wheels, but at some points I do miss, like, you know, rolling out a swag. It was just me and my dog in my swag for the weekend. There are parts that you miss, I will say that.
There's definitely pros and cons. And it's something that we keep talking about on this show, and I don't apologise for that, because it's something that, for me, I find really interesting to see different people's perspectives on it. And, you know, being in the industry, we're very lucky. We've got access to so many products. We get stuff given to us, or we get good rates, or, you know, mates hooking us up and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know, there's still something nice about going back to basics, right?
100%,
like, just a swag. And even, like, I was chatting to Paulie the other day, and he was saying, like, he wants to start using, like, his daily Hilux to go do trips with, like, an esky and a swag. So not even taking a fridge. And I'm like, I really like that. You know, just
concept.
The simplicity of it.
100%. I feel like it's something that we all crave a little bit, you know, every now and then. You just want to get away from the technology, you know, same thing of like putting the phones down, going out of service and just really getting, like you said, back to basics. So good.
And it's sort of, for me, I've got to continually remind myself about why I fell in love with camping and with exploring in the first place.
Yeah.
With that said, I love having lithium and multiple fridges. And like, we were sitting in the Simpson Desert a few years ago eating Maxi Bonds, and someone walked past us and was like, "Is that an ice cream?" I'm like, of course it's an ice cream, you know? So like, there are benefits to it.
Last year we were going to do a bit of winter camping, and we really wanted to go down to the snow, spend a weekend in the snow, and, you know, really camp out and embrace it all, right? So before that trip, Tom insisted that we try out an induction cooktop in the setup. And I was so off it at the start. I was like, come on, man, like an induction cooktop, like, are you serious? And he's like, it's going to be a game changer, you know, like we won't have to worry about the cold when we're winter camping and stuff. It'll be great. And I was so like not for it at the time. And I will say now, yes, like it's so convenient to have it there.
They're pretty good.
They are pretty good.
So I've never used an induction cooktop camping, but I've got induction in the house that I bought recently, and it's mad. Like it's really good.
So easy. Everything heats up so quickly. Like you're not sitting there like trying to boil a billy for like an hour. Like I will say, like there are benefits.
Oh, absolutely. I was cooking dinner down at Denny the other night, and as frequently happens when you're outdoors, the wind and the rain started on cue, and like I got a pretty good gas cooker. I got one of those Genesis jet boil things, and like I was just battling to keep the flame going. I was thinking at the time, induction's pretty good, but we had a caravan there with gas inside, and I guess it's the stubbornness. I could have gone inside to cook, but I was like, no, I've started. I've got to finish it. But yeah, I can see an induction cooker in the setup at some point. Like it does make sense, right?
It's just some things are there to make things easier, but I don't know.
Do you like the rooftop tent?
I do. Like I feel like my favourite part is like if you've been doing a big day's worth of driving, like for example, we just went over to WA and we were driving like big hours to get over there, and to be able to pull into a campsite at night time, not really know what's going on in your surroundings, but then to wake up in the morning with the sun coming up, roll down your windows, and you're like got this view up on top of your car of just where you've ended up. I kind of love that. I love waking up on top of the car. Plus I find it a lot easier to pack up and put away than what a swag was when I was doing it by myself. So
of course.
Yeah.
And if it's wet and whatever, like one thing that I've never owned a rooftop. My wife always wanted one, and I was always resistant.
Okay.
I didn't want the weight on the roof of my car because I do pretty hard wheeling in my 80. Now we've got a daughter. The rooftop's off the agenda anyway. But I've always kind of been a little bit jealous of that when I see people's photos of like the sunrise or the sunset and they're sitting in their rooftop, and I'm like, I see the appeal.
That looks so like lovely, doesn't it?
And you can pull up anywhere, right?
Literally,
like,
and just
as long as the car's level, you're sweet. You don't need to worry about the ground that you're on or anything like that.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, no, it is very good. One of the recent trips that I went on though, I actually ripped the rooftop off my car.
Oh, I did see that.
And that was a lot of fun. So for the rest of the trip, we had to undo the ratchet straps that were holding it onto the roof of my car every time I wanted to get in there to sleep. And then I had to re-ratchet it so I wouldn't fall off in the middle of the night in the rooftop tent. So that was interesting. That was a little bit where I was like, this wouldn't have happened with a swag.
No,
like, the swag wouldn't have been fine.
Wouldn't have, but it wouldn't have been as spectacular to watch either, because that was pretty amazing how cleanly it came off.
Oh my gosh, I'll never live that down to this day. The boys still give me curry about that one.
Oh, look, I on one of those trips, some boxes fell off the back of the ute, and seriously, at Denny, I had like 5 different people come up to me going, "Oh, remember when all your stuff fell off the back of this ute?" I'm like, and I said to one of these guys, "You can do like the coolest stuff. You drive like all these hard tracks, no one will remember, but you do one dumb thing, and that's like the moment that will define you forever."
100%. They're just like, "Oh, good to see your rooftop still on the roof." I'm like, "You're funny."
Yeah, well, that's the risk you run when you put yourself in the public eye.
It's exactly right. Exactly.
So that was on a 4-wheel drive 24/7 trip.
It was, yeah, it was.
So that's been a bit of a change for you. You've done a few trips with the boys now.
We have, yeah. I should say I have. Yeah, it's been such an eye-opening experience, but like in all of the good ways. Never, like when I first started, my social media platforms and stuff, it was such a big dream of mine to be able to go on one of these trips with the boys, like I was like, that'd be such a cool thing, girl in the industry, getting out there and having a crack. And then it happened this past year, and it was everything I could have dreamed for and more, to be honest. Like, don't get me wrong, it was very challenging in some moments, but yeah, it was absolutely incredible, and I learned so much too. Like, those boys are absolute legends, all of them.
Yeah, they really are. And it's so funny because, I'm sure you get asked a lot, right? Like, what are the trips like? What are the boys like? Is it like what you see on the show? Like, what do you think? Do you think it's like what you see being on one of those trips?
I think so. Like, it's funny you say that, because I was literally sitting at work this afternoon, and I had our FedEx bloke who comes and picks up our mail. Yep. He came in the office, and I was sitting there in my chair doing some editing or something, and he was just like, "I've got to ask." And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "What are the boys like?" And like Shauno and Jocko and Jesse and that. And I was just like, "Oh, they're all legends, like quirky in their own ways, but they're all bloody brilliant people." And he's like, "Oh, I've always wanted to ask." And I'm like, "Oh, bless your heart." But yeah, I definitely think it's what you see on the TV is very similar to how it is in real life. But I will say, like, probably something that a lot of people don't see is the long hours these boys are putting in every single day. It's not a holiday. No,
it's work.
And
I keep telling people that, and no one believes me, right?
No, literally. I came back from Cape, and so many of my mates was like, "Oh, how was your holiday?" I'm like, it's anything but a holiday. Yeah. You're constantly on the go. I was covered head to toe in midgie bites and mud the entire time. You get, the odd rest day here and there, but like those boys are just on 24/7, getting it done, and it's incredible to watch, really.
And the cameramen?
Oh, they're just weapons.
The hardest working people in the industry.
They're absolute weapons, aren't they?
They're the ones that get me, like, and even, you do a big day driving or whatever, and breakages or whatever, and then you get to the end of the day, everyone kicks back to have a beer, and the camera boys are like downloading footage and charging stuff, and they're up till all hours, and then they're the first ones up in the morning. Like, you open your swag, or you unzip your rooftop, and they're there, and they're up, and you're just like...
Literally, you open your rooftop, and like they're there with the camera just staring at you, ready for you to get out, and you're like, oh my God, like it's just so intense. They are such hard workers, and even when you're feeling like a little bit down, or not down, but like you're lacking energy, or like you're just exhausted, they're still there like, "Come on guys, let's go. And I'm just like, wow, good on you guys."
And what gets me about it, like, we did Lake Cumberland 2 years ago down in Tassie, right? So it's like literally going up a mountain. They walked the whole way. Like, they left the camera car at the bottom of the track, and they walked the whole way up and then the whole way down, and I got to the end of that and I was like, oh, you know, I'm pretty tired. And I'm thinking, you're sitting in a car all day, dude. Like, these guys are running up and down, carrying camera gear, and like in the rain and the cold. And
yeah. When we did big high country, we were calling them like the mountain goats. Like, they were just
100%.
up and down those tracks like nothing else. It was insane, absolutely insane.
Yeah, and I think like so much of the success of that show is how hard that camera crew works, right?
Oh, 100%.
It's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
Do you so you've done a few trips now with those guys?
Yeah, a couple. Yeah, couple now. Yeah, we did Vic High Country, which was a two-parter, I think, and then recently did Cape York, which was incredible. Like, I've always wanted to do Cape York behind the wheel of my own car, and then to be able to do it with those boys and that crew as well was just like just mind blowing. You know what I mean? Like, it was such an epic experience that I will just not forget. It's like, you probably find it too. Do you find it when you've been out bush with them, say for like a month, like what Cape York was? It's hard to come back to reality a little bit.
It is a little bit weird, isn't it? Because you become like, you're in such a little like microcosm of the universe, right? Like, you spend every minute of every day for weeks at a time with these guys, and it's. But I think it's the same with anyone. Like, you know, we've travelled out to Fink, not with 4-wheel drive 24/7, just with a couple of guys from work, and like, you spend all that time with a small crew for a couple of weeks, and you're in remote areas, challenging conditions, car breakages, it's stressful, and
and you're all like relying on each other so much. You literally become like this little family almost.
Yeah.
And that, like, I remember I came back home and I just felt so out of it. I was just like, you just with these people non-stop for a whole month, and then, you know, you come back to reality and you're like, you're kind of adjusting a little bit.
It's a bit strange.
It is a little bit strange, but
you come back and you've got to like dress appropriately to walk into the office. You know, like, you've been wearing work boots and shorts for like a month.
It's like, oh, do you have to have a shower every day? Like, you know,
I haven't showered for a week. What are you talking about?
That's exactly what it's like on those trips, isn't it? Oh, wow.
And so before, I know Belle Jones has done a couple of eps now with Steady, and Belle's a legend. I've got all the time in the world for her.
Yeah.
But before you guys went on the show, had they had any female participants on those trips before? I can't remember.
I feel like they did. Was it Jillaroo Jess?
No, she didn't go on that show.
Oh, okay, all right. Maybe I'm getting my lines crossed. I feel like there was one other girl, but a while back, back when it was like full drive action kind of thing, there might have been a girl participant, but I'm not sure if it was someone who was driving and potentially doing the full drive stuff. So I might have to look into that a little bit.
How was the response from the audience? Like, did you get, I'm guessing you got a lot of really positive feedback from other girls who, like you, look up to those guys and would love to be part of it, but was the response pretty positive?
It was, like, to be completely honest with you, I was so nervous when the first episode was about to come out. I was like obviously, being a content creator, I'm so used to editing and seeing the finished product before anyone else does.
You have control over the story,
I've got control over the story, whereas this one, like the week leading up to the first episode drop, I remember being so nervous because I hadn't seen any of like what was put together, and I was like, oh God, I don't know how I did, you know, like obviously wanted to do a really good job to, you know, for all the girls out there in the industry, you know, so I was so nervous. But then once the episode went up, the influx of positive comments and everything was like mind-blowing. Like, I was so stoked with the response and stuff like that. Like, you know, in this industry, you got to have a thick skin. So I was very much prepared to, you know, cop it. It was absolutely fine. But the wave of positive that came from it was just amazing.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, like the comments are like, my favourite comments are like the ones where parents comment saying, you know, my daughter really looks up to Liv. There was one the other day, she watched this bloke's youngest daughter recently watched one of the Cape York episodes, and he commented being like, my daughter started wearing her hair the same way that Liv does, you know, she looks up. It's just so beautiful. Like, I love it. Yeah, love that side of it.
And that's, you know, particularly for you, I think you've got a really important part to play, and you've got obviously your own channel, and you're out there and you're showing that, hey, the girls can do it as well, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's it.
You're spearing, you're fishing, you're hunting, you're in the 4-wheel drive, like, you know, you're getting your hands dirty, and I think it's so admirable that you're doing that, and you're setting a really good example for young girls, and making it accessible. Because it is such, like, 4-wheel driving in particular, and even fishing and hunting, it's like pretty male dominated pursuits.
And
I think it's so important that we do make it accessible for young girls, and that's become way more important to me, like, now having a daughter, because I'm like, well, why shouldn't she be able to get involved and get amongst it, right?
That's it, and go hunting and like understand where her food comes from, or like where her meat and her fish and things like come from. Like, that's awesome. Love that. Yeah.
And particularly for four-wheel drives, like, why do you have to be a bloke?
Exactly.
If you're in a car, the car's doing the hard work, right?
Yeah, that's it. Like, I 100% agree. Like, as far as what females are capable of, I think it's, like, obviously I don't want to, do this whole male versus female thing. It's not like that at all.
Not at all.
But, why, like you said, why can't females be involved? It's such a good place for people. Like me, myself, I've learned so many lessons just by traveling around in my car, or like, tackling new challenges. When I first started doing those trips with four-wheel drive 24/7, I had done probably the bare minimum of four-wheel driving. And you know what I mean? Like, I was no expert whatsoever. So a lot of what I have learnt was on those trips, and talking to Jock and Jesse and, getting their opinions on how to drive a certain line. Like, I've learnt so much just by putting myself out there. Like, yes, it can be scary, but, that's how you grow as a person, I think.
Absolutely. And look, I'm the same. Like, I'm far from an expert. And, it's funny when you see, like, when you make a mistake, and I've made plenty and I'll make more, but, you see the negative comments going, oh, this person can't drive. It's like, or they don't know what they're doing. I'm like, no, I don't know what I'm doing.
I
haven't had any training. I'm not experienced. I haven't grown up doing this. I have literally no idea what I'm doing. I'm just having a crack.
That's it. I think that's so important, and that's what I was trying to portray so much with my social media is, like, you don't need to be perfect at everything that you try. It's just about getting out there and having a go. Like, I like to refer to myself as, like, jack of all trades, master of none, to be completely honest. I'm not, perfect in any means of way, like with spearfishing, hunting, four-wheel driving, anything. But I love getting out there and trying new things and giving it a crack, and just saying, exactly. And saying yes to those new experiences, how you learn and, figure out what works, figure out what doesn't, and then try again.
Yeah. And I think there's like a perception that, when we go on those shows that we think we're good or we think we know everything. It's like, I'm the first one to put my hand up and be like, I have no idea what to do. Like, Jesse, help. Like, where do I put the wheels? What do I do? Which gear should I be in?
Yeah,
like,
100%.
And I'm the same. I've learned so much from going on those trips. Like, those guys have got so much experience. They've just got so much seat time, right? And you talk to someone like Jesse, who's literally grown up full driving, and then whenever he's not doing it for work, he's doing it for fun, or he's racing, or he's like, he's
always just
immersed in that industry, and he's been so helpful with me. Like, I bought a Patrol and had no idea about them, and like just what he's taught me about the car and how it's going to behave. And I guess for him, or for me, he's encouraged me to push that car way harder than I ever would have, right?
100%.
And I'm like, it still hasn't broken, so he must know. Like, so it's such a steep learning curve. The first trip you go on, I remember my first one, I was so nervous.
Oh, yeah.
And I still am. I'm going on a trip in 2 weeks and I'm nervous. I know where we're going to go and I'm like...
I'm still nervous.
I'm still nervous, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree too, though. Like, the recent Cape York episode that just came out, there's one part in it which, like, Tom was covering his eyes for because there was, like, this, like, steep kind of dog hole bank going up, and Jesse was just like, you got to push it harder, and I'm sitting there in the seat like, nah, like, I'm going to do a CV, I'm going to do all like both of my CVs and God knows what else. And he's like, nah, trust me, you've got this, and like having him there is like that little, I want to say angel in your ear, but he could also be a bit of a devil in your ear as well. But like that encouragement.
It's like a little bit of healthy peer pressure.
Yeah, a little bit. And it just makes you push yourself that little bit more, and it's so cool. Like, I fell in love with this car so much more just by, figuring out what it's actually capable of.
Yeah, and you get a better appreciation for how capable these vehicles really
100%,
are. Right?
Yeah.
And I think it's such a good thing, like what that show has done for the industry. Like, and I talk about it a lot. Like, I've done a few episodes with them. Obviously, at GME, we sponsor the show. Like, we sponsor Sean, so there's a commercial implication there for us. But what they've done for the four-wheel drive industry in this country is phenomenal.
100%.
I mean, you go to any four-wheel drive show when any of the boys do a stage show, and it's like a sea of people and lots of young kids, lots of young girls that have now, with you and Belle, and they've made it really accessible for everyone. And I think it's like absolutely fantastic for the industry.
100%. They've done such a great job, and they're just really down to earth people too. Like,
they deserve the success, right?
100%. Yeah.
And I think, like what you said, the hard work can't be underestimated, right? Like, I know there's a perception, I'm sure you get it, and like I get it all the time, when are you actually going to do some work?
All the time.
Those guys though, like, I think Sean said he's away for like 200 plus days a year. Like, that's got to take a toll, right? Like, people go, oh, it's all fun, but four-wheel driving is fun, yes. But like being away from home that much?
Like we were only, I was only away, for probably 2 or 3 months this past almost year. Like I was only away for like 2 or 3 months and away from the workshop and, you know, my dogs and things like that and the family and stuff. And like not that it took a toll, but it really made me appreciate the time that I do get to spend at home. Because it does kind of, what's the word? It's like I don't know what the word would be. It does give you a much more of an appreciation for being at home, but it does throw a spanner in the works a little bit because, you know, you're in one state 1 month and then, you know, you're back home for a month and then you're gone again. Like, I couldn't imagine doing it as a full-time job.
Yeah,
like what
it's that
those
lack
boys
of stability and lack of routine, right?
Yeah, literally. And they're just like getting thrown like, you know, we're going here now. And they do it so well. Like they do it with the biggest smile on their face and they just get it done. But yeah, it's definitely not all sunshine and rainbows as what a lot of people would think, I think.
Yeah, and it would absolutely take a toll. Like I was away for probably 4 months last year and like that was hard.
Yeah.
It's hard on my wife.
Yeah.
And I'm the same, like I love my dogs, right? So it's like being away from your dog, it's like, people go, what are you talking about? But it's like, I miss my dog.
100%. I love my girls. And like, you know, Tom can only do his own washing for so long as well. So,
Come home and it looks like a bomb's gone off in the house.
I kid you not, he's going to hate me for saying this. The last time I went away, as I was driving back from Cape York, he actually hired a cleaner to come in and clean our house because he was
like a forensic cleaner.
Yeah. He's like, I tried. He's like, I really tried, but I vacuumed like 3 times and I felt like I wasn't making a difference. So he's like, I just got someone to come in and do it for me.
Yeah.
I was like, fair.
End of lease clean. Yeah. It's like, you're moving out? No, my wife's coming home.
Yeah, literally. I was like, oh, well, bless his heart. I guess he, you know, didn't leave it as a bomb for me to get home, but yeah.
But it's lots of things, right? Like it's even your diet, right? Like, you know, and if you're training or whatever, you're out of that routine and, you know, it's like late nights and then eating 2-minute noodles for dinner and like, literally. I'm not trying to make out that it's bad. It's still great fun.
Oh, it is, but
it would be so hard to do that so much, right?
100%. Like even for me, like, you know, the beers around the fire every night and stuff like that, that takes a toll on the body, you know.
It does,
when you're sitting in a car for like most of the day and, you know, you're kind of doing a bit of walking up and down the tracks, but, you know, like you said, you're out of your training routine and the rest of it. So, yeah, it can definitely blow things out of proportion a little bit.
Yeah.
So you might say.
So you've obviously done lots of travel with those guys. You've done travel by yourself, solo to the NT. You and Tommy, you're always out and about. I'm always... low-key a little bit jealous of whatever adventure you've got up to on the weekend, and it's very motivating for me to see just how active you guys are. You're always out doing something cool. So where's the best place that you've been in Australia? I know you said Cairns is your favourite, but in terms of four-wheel drive trips, touring trips, is there one trip or one destination that really stands out for you?
Oh, it's hard. Like I feel like each state has like their own thing, and a lot of people do say that, like, oh, how do you plan like what you want to do on a trip? And it's like, well, it's kind of depends on what we like, whether we're fishing or diving or hunting or it kind of changes with that, I guess. So I would say, like, as far as four-wheel driving and touring goes, I really like South Australia, to be completely honest. Like, there's not that there's like a whole much of like four-wheel drive tracks and things like that down there, but the touring side of it through the Flinders Ranges and along that whole coastline and the Eyre Peninsula and stuff, it was so beautiful. And it was so quiet when we went down there too. I feel like it's kind of like a hidden gem a little bit down there.
We've actually got to stop talking about it on this podcast, because I've talked about this with a few people now, because we're the same. Like SA is a gem.
It's just so nice. Like, it's one of those places where you can still potentially pull up to a campsite and book somewhere that night. It's not booked out for months in advance.
And heaps of free camps.
Yeah, heaps of free camps as well, which is
you can drive on
incredible.
pretty much all the beaches.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, I just feel like there's so much. I don't know if freedom's the right word, but it's just not as heavily regulated down there as well, I feel. Like you said, you can drive on the beaches. There's no, star pickets of where you've got to stay or where you've got to camp exactly. It's a little bit more free reign. Yeah, a little bit more free reign. Yeah, 100%.
It's so beautiful down there.
It is. It's stunning. Like, you still kind of get those WA sunsets over the beach, and yeah, it's beautiful. Some of that coastline is just amazing.
Well, if you want to see the sunset over the water and you don't want to drive to WA, you can be strategic in South Australia, right? If you end up on the right side of a peninsula, then you get that effect.
100%, yeah. So I probably would have to say South Australia, but like I said, there's so many different states have so many awesome things as well.
Absolutely. We are so absolutely blessed in this country.
Yes.
The diversity of what we have available, right?
Yeah.
Within a couple of days' drive.
Yeah, we've got the snow, and then you go up like far north Queensland, you've got the tropics and the Daintree, like the rainforest. It's
the desert,
awesome.
and
Yes.
the high country,
Yeah.
and like it's just it's quite phenomenal.
Crazy.
You would never run out of places to explore in this country.
No.
I don't think it's possible.
No, I don't think so either. Like Tom and I have always said that I don't really have a big need to want to go overseas and do anything. You know, my mum kind of likes to travel overseas nowadays as she's getting a little bit older, but she's like, why didn't you come with me? I was like, I still have so much to see here. Like Australia just has so much to offer.
Yeah, it's endless.
Yeah.
And particularly for people like us that are so in love with the outdoors, right?
Yeah,
Like it's the perfect country for us.
That's it. Like, so many people are like, oh, why don't you go to like Thailand to swim with the whale sharks? I'm like, I can go to WA and do that, and I don't have to leave the country, So put the boat in, go out and do it on your own merit, and yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit the same. People go to like, I've never been to Hawaii. Maybe Hawaii's great, but like people go to like Fiji for the beaches or whatever. It's like, have you seen some of the beaches that we have in this country?
100%.
Like we have stunning coastline.
That's it, and a lot less crowded than like a lot of like I guess the touristy places you'd go, as in Hawaii and things like that.
And accessible.
Yeah, very.
So you don't if you've got a big family or whatever. Airfares are bloody expensive these days, and hotels and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Four-wheel drives aren't cheap, but you can do a pretty basic setup, and you can get in the car, and as much as you can, as much diesel as you can afford, you can go and live that stuff. And I think, the more people that do that, the better.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's something that's really good, and like we said at the start, it's those formative years with your kids that will then set them on the path to do that for the rest of their lives.
100%. Yeah, I actually can't wait for that. Like, I'm sure there's going to be people jumping on you being like, "Oh, Liv and Tom are pregnant." Like
every time you have an announcement on social media, everyone just goes straight to Liv is
having
pregnant.
a baby. No, not just yet.
News.
Yeah.
Oh my god! Yeah.
Exactly, but I can't wait to the point like where we have kids and we can take them fishing and diving and things like that with us, and really just show them Australia and get them on the road with us. I cannot wait for that, as I'm sure it's same with you as well. Like
you're
already doing it.
In the last couple of weeks, Layla's been to Queensland, Deniliquin,
so good.
She's been all over the place,
yeah.
And I think as much as we can normalise that, the more comfortable she'll be being out of the comfort zone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if the comfort zone is being in the bush, great.
That's her new normal then.
Well, that's what we want to do, right?
Yeah.
And it's as long as you can make that lifestyle normal, then I think it's great.
Yeah, I agree.
So something you've mentioned a couple of times is fishing, diving and hunting. And it's almost like those three words are all linked for you. So something that, I'm so impressed with you in particular is like how gutsy you are with diving, right? Like I have an affinity for the ocean. I love the ocean, but it terrifies me, right? So like, I love my fishing. I like fishing from land or a boat.
Fair, yep.
Donning a SEAL suit and jumping in the middle of the ocean to shoot a fish, I think is another level again. So all the respect in the world to you for that. Is that, I know Tommy's right into his spearing as well.
Yeah,
is that something that you started doing with him, or how did you sort of get into spearfishing?
Yeah, so spearfishing definitely kind of came into the picture when I started dating Tommy. I was always like, I guess hunting was always my main thing for a long time, like full driving and hunting. And then when we started dating, he was right into his spearfishing. So I was like, yeah, okay, I'll give it a crack, see what, and I fell in love with it. Like always loved the water, always loved being in the water, but to then combine like the hunting and the love for water to be able to go out and, shoot your own fish and get your own food and stuff was just the most amazing thing I thought when I first started doing it. I was just like, this is incredible.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about Tommy is he's one of those people who are very good at everything. Everything he tries, he's like a master at.
One of those slightly annoying people.
Very. So me being, very new to spearfishing, he was kind of like, well, if you're going to come, like, it's kind of like sink or swim, like you just learn as you go. And I'm like, righto, here we go. So I wasn't spearfishing for very long, and then we got invited to go down to like the southern part of Victoria, to the coast down there, to this bloke that we met on social media. And he was like, oh, do you guys, want to come out and try and shoot a bluefin tuna?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was just like, I haven't been spearing for very long, but if Tommy's saying I can do it, I can do it. That's all I need, is that I need someone just to believe in me that little bit. And I'm like, yeah, I've got this. Like, it's fine. So yeah, we trekked down there one weekend and went out with this bloke that we'd never met before, out on his little 16 foot Haynes, which we now own because Tommy loved the boat so much.
That boat?
That boat,
oh,
yeah,
brilliant.
that one. We went out in the little 16 Haynes, went 80 k's offshore out to these like oil rigs, right? And we get out there.
They're not very sharky though, are they?
Dude, talk about seal suits. There were seals swimming around these oil rigs, and I'm like,
that's a bit much.
Yeah, and I was like, well, they seem pretty cruisy in the water. Like, surely we'll be okay. Anyway, we're in like 100 meters of water, and we get out there, and it's rough. Like the swell's pretty big, and the boys were like, right, Liv, you're gonna go first. I'm like, what? I'm looking at Tom, and I'm like, you're gonna throw me overboard into 100 meters of water to try and shoot the biggest fish I've probably ever seen in my life, right? And he's like, yeah, but if you go first and like, because they're a bit spooky, if they bugger off, you'll get the best chance at getting one. I was like, yeah, okay, Tom.
Good story.
Yeah, good story. So anyway, they throw me in the water and I'm swimming around and you can't see anything. It's just blue below you, like absolute blue. And I'm thinking to myself, this is insane. Like this is absolutely insane. But all those fears and all the doubts went out of my head when I saw these huge figures starting to like appear underneath me. And when you're looking at them, they didn't look super huge because you didn't have like anything to kind of gauge the size of them off, but they were these huge bluefin tuna. And I'm like looking at the boys, looking at these tuna, and I'm like, well, okay, I'll just try and shoot one. So duck dove down, managed to land one. Well, I managed to get my shaft through one of them. And as I shot it, it's taken off. Like it's taken off just straight back down deep. And it's attached to this huge float.
So you're on a roller gun?
Roller gun, yeah. So the line's released and it's been attached to this huge float. Next minute, this fish is gone. The float's getting dragged by this fish. I'm holding onto the float and the boys are like, start pulling. So I'm there trying to wrestle. I think it ended up being like a 60 kilo tuna or something like that. Like it was a decent size, So I'm there like wrestling this thing to the surface because it obviously wasn't like a stone shot. It was still kicking. So I'm there wrestling this thing to the surface, and it took me about half an hour to get this thing close enough to the surface for me to go down and put a stone shot on it. And we got it done, but it was like once the adrenaline kicked in, I wasn't even thinking about the potential for sharks.
You're just focused on what you're doing.
Yeah, but like thinking about it now, I'm like, I shot a fish, there's blood in the water, this fish is carrying on and putting all sorts of vibrations through the water. Really, when you think about it like that, I'm like,
oh, it's rogue as. Like, there's no two ways about it.
It was absolutely wild. And I think after that experience of like landing this tuna, getting it in the boat and doing that and like kind of proving to myself that I was capable of doing that is when I really fell in love with diving. Like beforehand I was like, yeah, this is cool, but like after that experience it just blew my mind. That's pretty high level stuff. That's not like beginner stuff. Crazy, man. So like after that happened, all these people were like, oh, like you're like a professional spearfisher. I'm like, nope. Like, it was no, my husband threw me overboard. Literally. Tommy was like, in you go. So it was wild, but yeah, I really fell in love with it from there because like after getting that tuna and bringing it home, we fed our neighbours, our family, our friends for like weeks with the tuna that we managed to get. With the highest quality protein that you can get, right? Yeah, unreal, yeah. So it was really, really cool. Awesome experience. A little bit crazy, but sick. Yeah. And it's so funny that you say that, like, because I watch heaps of spearfishing and I've done like a bit of rock hopping and like very shallow water spearfishing. That's enough for me, right? Like Bluewater is another level altogether, right? Yeah, like it's when you're just floating in like this vast blue nothingness, and like I said, you've got nothing to kind of gauge off how big something is or kind of where you are in relation to anything. It's just blue. It just, I don't know, it kind of does something to you. It does all sorts of things. Yeah, adrenaline I think is probably one of the probably words the right words. Yeah, like it's just insane. So the way you just described spearfishing, I think, is the best description I've heard. So it's underwater hunting, right? So it's like, it's not fishing, it's hunting, right? And you said you've got a background in hunting, and I know you guys are out there, you chase a lot of pigs? Yeah, I was always, I wouldn't say brought up, but how I initially got into hunting was through chasing pigs with dogs and stuff like that. That was always my thing. And then, I kind of got into more of, I guess, the stalking, shooting, venison, deer, that kind of thing when I me and Tommy got together. Yeah.
So I'm the first to admit, like I love hunting, love shooting, done heaps of pest control, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but you're a dog lover.
I am.
So running dogs on pigs is something that I'm conflicted about.
Yeah.
So I've got a lot of mates that hunt pigs with dogs, so don't get me wrong. I was just on a farm in Queensland a couple of weeks ago, and my mate's got 3 dogs that he runs on pigs.
Yeah.
When we were up there, he didn't take the dogs out, and he said, it was because of me. And I said, why is that? And he goes, well, because I don't want you to shoot one of my dogs in the melee.
Yeah,
and he said, if I've ever got people on the property, regardless of how good a shot they are, he won't do it unless it's... Is that one of the dogs? The dog's like, what? Did someone say pigs?
One of the pallets was just like, whoop.
So yeah, I guess, you know, as I said, not putting you on the spot here, but how do you deal with that? Like, because there's obviously risk involved for your dogs.
Of course, yeah. Well, like a lot of things, you know, there's always going to be that risk. For me, I was a vet nurse for 6 years. So
True.
Yeah. So before coming to work with Tommy and, you know, doing the whole diesel performance workshop and stuff, I was a vet nurse for a lot of years. And like my love for animals has been in me since I was a kid. Like I used to have a pet chicken that I used to walk around like my baby. So like my love for animals is quite big. But when I first got introduced to pig hunting with dogs, for me it was a very much of like it's a pest control thing.
Yep.
We're doing the farmers obviously a solid with helping them with their crops or their lambing or whatever. And for me, I don't know, it wasn't until I trained my first dog. So Tika, my big wolfhound, I got her when she was like 5 weeks old. She, no one wanted her. She was kind of going to get discarded out in some little country town. And I was like, I'll take her. Like, so she was my baby. And initially I was like, I don't know, like I might not hunt with her. Like it might just be a house dog. But I started, like I had this bond with her, and then I started taking her out bush, and she kind of naturally had this instinct of kind of what to do when it came to like the hunting side of things. I had a lot of mates that were into hunting and stuff like that. So she was around it a little bit.
Yep.
I never pushed it on her.
Yeah.
Never pushed it on her and never was like, you must do this. She just naturally wanted to do that. And then, I started like fully training her, and I felt like I had this connection. Like the way I like to explain it to people for me is that to work towards a common goal with your best mate being your dog, to, you know, and to have each other's back, like I've got her back, she's got mine, 100%. So like she knows without a shadow of a doubt that I will be there for her. If she's bailing up a big pig and she needs help, I am there. Like I would never leave her to just be like, oh, she'll sort it out on her own or she'll come back. I will be there for her. And same goes, like I remember this one time, we were hunting out on this block, and this huge windstorm came in, and it was like a huge like dust storm kicked up, and it was just on dusk, so the visibility wasn't very good, but we knew that there was a huge mob of pigs out on these flats. Anyway, all the dogs, we had about 4 dogs with us, Tika being one of them. They all jumped after this mob, and we lost sight of them. Like we've obviously got them on the tracker so we could see where they were, but we lost sight of them. And I started running to Tika, obviously to give her backup. And before I got to where she was, this pig came out of nowhere and just started running at me.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like this big boar. He just saw me. He like was walking, saw me, stopped, turned, and then just came at me.
Yeah, because they're super aggressive.
Super aggressive animals. Like this isn't no like Charlotte's Web sort of thing. Like these pigs are just nasty. Yeah. Anyway, this thing's running at me, and I'm like, we're in an open paddock. I've got no trees to hide behind. I've got nothing. I'm like, I'm done. Like I'm going to get hurt here. Next thing, out of the dust, Tika comes running in from like out of nowhere, just out of the side when this pig was like 2 meters away from me. She came in out of nowhere, out of the side, grabbed a hold of it, and then just kept running, like took it completely out of my way. And I didn't even call her nothing. It was like she kind of knew where I was and what was going on. But I don't know, I feel like I've got this connection with my dogs because of what we've been through our bush together, if that makes sense.
Absolutely makes sense.
Yeah, like I know it can be scary, and obviously a lot of people, you know, have their qualms about it and stuff. And even when I do produce like hunting content and stuff like that, I do my best to educate people on why we do it and how to look after your dogs, and, you know, how to train dogs in the best way possible. It's not about just going out there and doing all-nighters and not taking care of, you know, it's like, you're not taking care of your best mate.
No, and I think that's, you know, that the way you just explained that is fantastic. And I saw only recently you posted something about one of your dogs jumping off the back of the quad when you weren't expecting her to.
Yeah.
And she didn't have a plate on. And so, you know, obviously
No.
you're taking those precautions. You know, your
Of
dogs
course,
are
yeah.
armoured up and they've got trackers on them.
Yeah.
So I guess, you know, you're doing it the right way.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It's just always been something that I've not been directly involved in, but I've seen it happening around me, and like I watch a lot of the Ball Brothers content from up
yeah.
in the NT,
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
those dudes are on another level.
Crazy, hey, up there. Yeah, yeah.
And that's next level, you know.
Yeah.
And they're stitching up dogs on the back of the ute and stuff. Like
Yeah.
it's pretty heavy duty, but
It
I
is.
guess it's always been a little bit of a tough one for me to reconcile, because I see so many people hunting pigs with dogs, and they're clearly dog lovers.
Yeah.
But the dog's at risk, but then, like you said, your dog naturally was drawn to doing it, right? Like that's the hound in her, right?
100%. Like, and it's like you said, that recent hunting trip you're talking about, it was funny because like Tika nowadays, she's getting a bit old in the tooth.
Yeah.
So I obviously watch how much I run her. Like I would hate to leave her at home because I know she'd hate that. So I still bring her out when we go hunting. I let her have a couple of runs, and then we tend to put her away and just let her rest. But this one weekend, it was just pig after pig after pig. And we were probably about 10 to 12 pigs in at this point, and I could see Tika was getting a bit tired. Like she just went for a swim in the dam, but she was kind of like a bit knocked up, and I was like, all right, you're done. We're going to put you on the back of the quad. We're going to tie you up, like just, you know, put a lead on her, and you can just chill here while the other dogs keep running. Anyway, next thing we know, the rest of the dogs had taken off down this hill after this mob of pigs. And like our youngest girl, she was off after him, and I was like, yep, sweet. Next thing I just see Tika plodding on down the hill. And I'm like, what are you doing? And she's she's fully slipped her collar and her plate and like, you know, her tracker and everything. And she was like, yeah, literally. She was like, I am not getting left behind. I will get this pig if it's the last thing I do. And I was like, God forbid. So like as soon as I saw her go after it, we were like on the quad straight down to where they were. Like we were hoping, obviously we didn't have the tracker, but she just stayed with the other dogs. We went straight there, and she was just happy as Larry. She pulled up this pig. She's looking at me like, Mum, did you see what I did? And I'm just like,
yeah, no plate,
yeah,
no nothing.
no plate, no nothing. But like, it goes to show, I would again never force my dogs to do anything that they didn't want to do. The day that she looks at a pig and turns the other way, that's it. She's done. She's retired. She's done. But like the love that she has for it, and like you know, is just like I love that for her. I love seeing how happy she is when she's on the back of the quad.
Yeah,
you know?
100%. I that property that I mentioned that I was on a couple of weeks ago, we went out looking for pigs, and my mate said to his dogs, no, you're staying here. And like as soon as the guns came out, the dogs are like ready. They're like, where are the collars? Like we're going, right?
It's crazy.
And they're watching us load guns into the side by side, and they're like, what do you mean we're not coming?
Yeah.
Like, and as we drove off, I look back and his dogs are like moping at the fence because they weren't involved. I'm like, okay, he's not forcing them. They want to do it, right?
That's 100% right. We're the same. We if we're packing for a week and away, the dogs will watch us. And if we start packing fishing gear, they're like, oh, we're staying at home.
Boring.
Yeah, boring. God, who goes fishing? And then as soon as we start packing like their plates and the trackers and stuff, they like jump around the yard, like howling, carrying on. Like they know. They 100% know.
Do, right?
Yeah, they're excited. It's just like a big game of hide and go seek for them, really. Like they're just like, we're there to do a job, we're going to find them, and that's it.
Yeah, it's something really interesting for me. I've always had dogs in my life, but I've never had like a working dog. And we recently got a Jack Russell, so a very compact working dog nonetheless. But the prey drive that little guy has is insane.
They're like crazy, like they're proper like crackheads. Like when they're put onto a job, they're just nothing will stop them. And
they need something to do, right?
Yeah.
And like we talk about it at home because he's just out in the garden, like deep in the garden for hours, and we're like, oh, he's doing Jack Russell stuff. Like, you know, he's got Jack Russell business to attend to. But we took him out to this property, and my mate was worried, going, oh, don't put him in the house yard if I'm not there. Like my dogs are a bit gnarly because he's got all like, you know, big pig dogs. Little Barry's in there. He's like, he was what part of the pack, right?
Yeah.
And I was sort of saying to my wife, maybe we should take him out hunting.
He'd love that, honestly.
Now his recall's pretty hopeless as a pup, but I can see that in him, and you know, as an R licensed hunter, I've got state forest access, and you can take dogs with you, and I'm like, maybe little Barry needs to come out because I'm sure he'd love it, right?
You
like just having something to do.
Yeah, 100%. Like it is. It's just so what's the word, like rewarding for them. I think it just makes their brain tick. And like what you said, little Jack Russell, he would have just been at home with those big dogs. He would have been like, this is my crew.
Yeah.
You know, this is my pack with the big dogs.
Oh man, he was in the side by side with the biggest grin on his face, like just one of the boys cruising around, and he had the best time of his life, and then slept for 3 days afterwards. But,
love that.
You know, I can see that in him, and it's in the breed, right? Like they're a hunting dog.
Yeah.
Admittedly small game, but
Yeah.
I can hear when you talk about it how passionate you are about it, and it's because of that bond with the dogs, right?
I definitely am, and like to bring, like I said earlier, to bring that awareness to it of like why we do it and how you can do it ethically. Like I think that's such a big thing because, like like in every, I guess, hobby or thing, there's always the part of it.
Yeah.
There's always the people that may not always do the right thing, and it makes it harder for other people. So all we can do at the end of the day is just bring awareness to it and try and do it in the best way and educate people the best we can.
And I think you're doing a bloody good job of it.
Thanks,
so
mate.
Keep it up.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate that.
I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, Liv. It's been really good to learn a little bit more about you and what makes you tick.
Unreal.
So yeah, thank you for spending the time. So if anyone wants to follow you, what are your socials? You got Instagram, YouTube?
Yeah, Instagram, YouTube are probably the main ones. So we've got This Is Liv'N on Instagram, and then This Is Liv'N YouTube channel. I'm sure Tony will drop it in here for you.
I'll put it in the description in the YouTube video.
You can go find them. Yeah, but no, thank you so much for having me. It's been absolutely awesome. Don't know what I was nervous about at the start.
See, I told you.
Yeah,
it's that
too
fast
easy.
5 at the start. It's the key, right?
That is, 100%.
All right. Well, thank you again. And thank you all for tuning in. We've done quite a few episodes now. I'm getting some really good feedback. I've had some negative feedback, which is great because it tells me what I'm doing wrong and what I should try harder with. So keep it up. Give me the feedback. I'm happy to hear it, good or bad. And yeah, make sure that you're following either Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss any of the future episodes. And we'll see all of you next time on The Outer Side.